Hi everyone. So in this video, I want to talk you through Impression's complete framework. I want to talk you through how we've expanded the SEO principle of EEAT and layered in additional user considerations beyond experience, expertise, authority, and trust. Most critically, I want to talk to you about how this framework can apply to both SEO and digital experience teams and how it can be a way to unify them to ensure they work better and more collaboratively with one another. So to start with, I want to set the scene and take you on the journey that we took to reach complete. And I want to do that by starting with the notion that website optimization is a strange place. So we have two teams that are primarily responsible for driving website performance. We have SEO teams who typically sit in amongst the wider marketing remit, and then we have digital experience teams who typically sit in amongst a wider product remit. And they're both primarily responsible for driving website performance, but they don't seem to acknowledge each other. Or when they do, they seem to be at loggerheads. And this is despite both seemingly having user needs at their core. And hopefully, almost immediately, this resonates with you where you've seen this play out in reality. So let's look at the repercussions of this disjointed approach. So firstly, we have wasted resource. If the two teams have differing goals, if they're not sharing insights between one another, this can lead to duplicate or even conflicting work. Secondly, we also have lost performance. On the SEO side, if we have content which ranks well, it might not convert if the user experience lacks. And then conversely, a well-optimized page from a CRO perspective may not be doing enough from a relevancy perspective to drive organic traffic. Lastly, we have unclear contribution. So if both parties are going away, being busy optimizing websites, optimizing pages, and just changing experiences on site simultaneously, it can become difficult to ascertain whose efforts have contributed to which performance success. And if we add all these together, what we get is an inefficient workflow, we get compromised user experience, and we get unhappy stakeholders, which is something we absolutely want to avoid. And I'm a firm believer that in the great words of Francis and the Lights, that we could be friends. And I'm a big believer that SEO teams can be much more effective and impactful with digital experience, with those teams by their side. And really, we only need to look at user signals and the role they play within SEO to understand why this is. So let's look into that. As SEOs, we know that our strategies and our tactics, they need to be user-focused. And this is SEO 101, the notion of creating people-first content. It's what we learn almost when we start out as SEOs. And to exemplify that, I did a quick review of the Search Quality Evaluator guidelines, having a look at what terms we used the most in terms of their frequency. What I found was words like user and users is referenced 824 times across the documentation. And it's actually the second most popular term behind page and pages. So this supports the idea of how important user focus is to SEO success. Then user signals and their role within the ranking algorithm. This has only been corroborated by Google in recent times. So via the exhibits from last year's US versus Google antitrust case, we saw via the documentation that came into the public domain, we saw the mechanics of the ranking algorithm and how it was informed by how the user interacts with the SERP and how really the SERP is the anchor point to informing algorithmic change and ranking change, And though this documentation was some years old, at least started to somewhat validate this idea of user signals being critical to ranking success. But then if we fast forward to earlier this year, we then got the algorithm leak. And this here is just looking at a screenshot from Rand Fishkin at SparkToro, looking at his write-up of the algorithm leak, and looking at the API that informed what constitutes a good click and what constitutes a bad click. And there was information there as well about the length of clicks. And in response, I think the SEO industry has always been good at least talking about user experience and its importance. So again, to exemplify that, I did some quick research on Twitter, just picked out these tweets. And you can see here there's rhetoric around SEO techniques like user experience being critical to boosting organic visibility, enhancing user experience is the key to an SEO campaign's success, that type of thing. I see this stuff on Twitter and then also LinkedIn a lot. But what it always makes me think is like, do we know what that means? And my hunch is that when SEOs talk about user experience, what we actually mean is best practice. And to me, that is a problem. So not only is the road to mediocrity paved with best practice, if everyone across a market is adopting best practice, then really no one wins. No one's there pushing the envelope, driving innovation. Everything is a level playing field and doesn't lead to a competitive landscape. But also, we can take some learnings here from digital experience. So DX teaches us that if we're governed by best practice alone, it's actually a risky endeavor when we think of it in terms of revenue. Being governed by things such as opinions or myths or best practice, it's actually, relatively speaking, there's a higher risk to revenue there than when we derive our insights from competitor reviews or qualitative, quantitative analysis, controlled experimentation, meta-experimentation, those types of things. But it also teaches us that to improve user experience, we actually require user research from quantitative studies or qualitative studies, that type of thing. It also teaches us that to improve user experience, we need to conduct experimentation to either prove or disprove hypotheses via the optimization cycle that you see here that relates to the original user research and the findings that were found in the first place. And to conclude, it's not to improve user experience. It's not about believing what's good for the user. It's about proving what's good for the user. And in terms of the latter, that's where digital experience sit. That's their camp, and that's what they excel at. And I believe SEOs are quite guilty of the former, where we convolute what's good for the user with best practice, and we believe something when we haven't really got the data to either prove or disprove it. When we consider user signals in the context of SEO, we know we want to accomplish these three things, right? So we want to be the first click, we want to earn a long click, and we want to secure that last click. This even goes before the exhibits from the antitrust case, before the algorithm leak. This is what I found on Moz from Cyrus Shepherd. It was from a few years ago, but it still stands true. And it's relevant, even algorithmic considerations put to one side. As marketers, this rings true, where we want to be recognizable in SERPs. We want to secure that first click. We want to be producing great content that resonates with our audiences to produce a long click. We want to be motivating and persuading users where it's the last click, where we satisfy the search query and where they become not just users, but they become customers and returning visitors. And one thing that's perhaps not known or perhaps overlooked is the idea that DX can help us, they can be the answer to getting us there. So with perhaps an end-to-end audience research program using qualitative and quantitative analyses, it can help us answer questions like, are our SERP snippets engaging to users? Are our brands recognizable in SERPs? Is our content market leading? And also, do we adhere to search intent in relation to the original search query? So if we also look into EAT, even here it can help us understand how SEO teams can be much more effective with DX by their side. So let's look into that. And I want to start by unpacking EAT quickly and acknowledging how it is the cornerstone of the modern SEO algorithm. The way I like to explain it personally is how it concerns specific user needs. So the principle asks marketers to build trust through developing considerations such as experience, expertise, and authority. And interestingly, digital experience follows the exact same principle. And again, this might be something that's overlooked by SEO teams. And this is a visualization that we use internally here at Impression. We use it when communicating with our clients. just where it centers trust and credibility at the core of the discipline. And we want to be asking questions like whether users are familiar with the brand, whether users feel comfortable at a subconscious level with the brand, and whether they're willing to interact with the website based on the trust that's communicated via the brand. And I want to showcase the marriage of SEO and DX under this lens of EAT through this case study. So this is for a car rental booking engine, and it's a client of ours where we've ran regular DX programs with them for some time. And here we're just looking at the form that's available when loading their homepage. So in this instance, this acts as the control. And what we did was create a variation that actually led to a 17% increase in bookings. But if we unpack the components that led to this increase, we can see how kind of EAT is also at the forefront of this. So, for instance, we have 9 years of rental cars in Iceland. That sings to experience. We have a local family-run business. That's expertise. Then we also have copy around how they've satisfied 200,000 happy customers. The Google reviews as well that are also pulling in. This sings to authoritativeness, and all of this backs out to trust, much in the same way as SEO efforts need to. And for me, herein lies the key. So this is how ComplE-E was born, by acknowledging this connection between SEO and digital experience via EAT. So I want to break down the logic with you. So firstly, as I've mentioned, EAT determines whether users experience your brand positively. It asks marketers to build trust, and we do that through developing considerations such as experience, expertise, and authority. We've then established how digital experience is just as concerned with this. Websites must establish trust in order to present themselves as credible and in order to turn visitors into customers. Therefore, it follows that EAT is just as applicable to digital experience as it is to SEO. And if we accept that as true, this is the exciting part. SEOs can then benefit from digital experience teams to understand what else is required to improve user experience. And this is where we landed on this notion of ComplE-E. This is our ComplE-E framework. And what I want to do now is talk you through the components of the framework and all the facets involved so you can build a picture of these additional user considerations. So the user considerations that we know already, we have experience, expertise, authority, and trust. This is EAT. And what we did was layered in the user needs that are applicable and that fit alongside these user considerations. So for under experience, we have first-hand exposure and third-party validation. Under expertise, we have knowledge, skill, authorship, and then content accuracy and depth. Under authority, we have recognized entity, whether they're externally sourced, whether they're associated with partnerships and affiliations. And then we have trust, which I appreciate is a culmination of experience, expertise, and authority. But this is where we can overlay social proof or transactional security, legitimacy, and design into it as well. So this is EAT as we know it. And then what we did was we took this away, we worked with our digital experience team to expand it even further. And this is where we then have ease laid on top. This is where we're looking at discoverability, accessibility, comprehension, and performance considerations like core web vitals and the metrics that are included there. We then have value as an additional user consideration where we're looking at price, perceived return, and education. And then lastly, we have motivation, where we're looking at the brand's proposition, looking at their urgency messaging, and then also their product range in comparison to the market. And all these in total, these constitute the user needs that are critical to digital experience. But then we can start to see what user considerations of what user needs are applicable to the other components of SEO. So this is everything that's critical to content SEO, and you can see what's what's been kind of greyed out there and what remains. These are all the components that constitute content success from an SEO perspective when considering user considerations. Then we also have user needs that are critical to link acquisition. And then we also have the user needs that are critical to technical SEO as well. And this is perhaps something where technical SEO is typically divorced from EAT, but under ComplE-E, it very much plays a part because there are user considerations that are applicable to the work that technical SEOs do. So perhaps through structured data, they can help brands become a recognized entity. We have transactional security there with considerations like HTTPS, even under discoverability, where technical SEOs are looking to improve crawling and indexing, typically through internal linking and improving that. That also sings to user benefits there to improve discoverability related to user journeying. And of course, as well, we have Core Web Vitals as well. So that's complete in its entirety. And so let's look at how the framework helps with strategy. So firstly, it provides areas of focus. It brings SEO and DX teams together to understand the areas of focus, and we can identify crossovers where we can benefit from collaborative working and avoid some of the repercussions that I talked about before around siloed and duplicating, conflicting work. Almost the inverse of that, it can always help strategically on when and where to pivot. So if we use ComplE-E to understand, we can use it to understand where resource is being spent and where more or less resource might be needed. Thirdly, we have validation. So you can use ComplE-E, the guiding principles there across the user considerations and user needs. You can use those against test ideas and centering hypotheses. And then lastly, you can use ComplE-E to understand impact. Around all the components of the framework, you can build a dashboard and to understand how experiments and optimizations perform against each component. And you can, from there, understand which considerations have been most impactful to performance. So let's look at the benefits of the ComplE-E framework, almost as the inverse of the repercussions of the disjointed approach that we spoke about earlier. So firstly, ComplE-E provides a unified strategic compass. With, like any framework, inherently they're teachable, so they'll promote alignment across teams. Also, it angles teams towards total user centricity. When speaking to stakeholders, they'll be more concerned with talking about customers than they will be algorithmic considerations. So it's therefore an easier language for everyone to understand. Then it's also immediately measurable. Though not always, SEO results can take time. Testing optimizations via DX programs can showcase a kind of immediate measurability and immediate user value beyond ranking improvements. And like last time, if we were to add all these together, this time we get an efficient workflow, we get an uncompromised user experience, and we get happy stakeholders, which is absolutely something we want. And to finish off this talk, I want to talk you through a case study where we use the ComplE-E framework. And what I want to do is take you on the organic journey of one of our jewelry clients. Though we've worked with this brand for a number of years, I thought around this time, nearer the start of 2022, was a good marker, as this was when they launched their new website. And this is where we just had SEO as part of their digital strategy. And we were able to go through this site migration. They re-platformed onto a new e-commerce platform. We were able to go through that migration process with lots of success, where we were able to showcase ongoing organic visibility increases. But really, the campaign and over the years, it came to the fore when we also locked in digital experience in addition to the content, link acquisition, and technical SEO work we were doing. And this is where work started to become more informed and more impactful. I want to talk you through some of the tactics that we took to get us to the position we are with them. So firstly, something as simple as a Trustpilot banner test. It's something we know is important when we're examining EAT, but it's also important for digital experience as well, as they want to be communicating that trust. What we did here, quite a simple experiment where we looked at including the Trustpilot banner onto the variation design, where the control design didn't have that. And this sings to trust as a user consideration, and as a user need, we're looking at social proof. And with the inclusion of that, we were able to showcase a 57% increase in mobile leads. And what we did to highlight whether there was any SEO impact, we also, alongside it, ran an SEO test. And here we were able to highlight a 12% increase in clicks. I do want to state how this comes with some caveats. The test, I think, only ran for a 2-week period. Normally, we'd want to be running tests for a longer period of time to ensure statistical significance, something like 4 to 8 weeks or beyond, depending on the complexity or what's involved. It was on the homepage as well, a page that typically has a lot of moving parts. Though the test implied a 12% increase in clicks, it might have been at the time to do with seasonal factors. But really, the most important thing it did showcase was that there wasn't any impact to SEO performance. If anything, at best, it stays the same, and we can see some increases as well. This is a great example of SEO and DX teams running side by side. Also, bestseller badges. Again, this falls under trust as a user consideration, where we're looking at social proofing and transactional security as user needs. When we did add this bestseller badge onto the PLP that's involved, we're able to showcase a 22% increase in mobile bookings. We were also able to showcase an 8% increase in visitors landing on the PLP page, but also going then to PDP pages as well. Now, this is important when we overlay the SEO strategy and their objectives, because at the same time, through improving content, through digital PR programs, we've been looking to increase visibility for the core keywords involved for this landing page. As we've been increasing that visibility, getting more users onto that page, DX has been helping us moving users from that page onto product pages, and subsequently resulting in conversions. So again, another great example of both of those teams using ComplE-E as a framework, how they were able to progress to ensure mutual success. And here's some most recent stats looking at year-to-date figures, year on year. There's just a snapshot here. If you want to read more, there is the case study that's available on our site. So to finish, I just want to end on some key takeaways. So firstly, if we work to improve integration between SEO and DX, this will result in a greater impact. Effective user experience doesn't mean adhering to best practice. Effective user experience is about understanding the user through user research. It's about conducting experimentation to prove or disprove hypotheses. If anything, best practice levels the playing field, and it means no one's winning. Thirdly, DX can support SEO in becoming that first click, the long click, and the last click. Algorithmic debates aside, as marketers, this is something we absolutely want to be striving for. We then spoke about how EAT is just as applicable to DX, to digital experience, as it is to SEO. And to take that even further, we can use ComplE-E to fully understand a comprehensive view of all user needs that are critical to improving user experience. And if you want to read more on ComplE-E, we do have a comprehensive guide available on our website via this link. It talks through the framework in a similar way that I did here in this video, but it unpacks each consideration and each need in much more detail. And that's everything for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions around ComplE-E, if you have any conversations around how SEO and DX teams can work better together, be absolutely keen to hear. Feel free to reach out on LinkedIn, or to myself personally on LinkedIn, or feel free to reach out to us via website, and we'll go from there. But thank you so much for listening.